And now I want to introduce two men that will one of our most interesting conversations, and most importantly, that will share what we as a community can learn from others that have made this journey. Reverend Jesse Jackson has played an incredible role in virtually every movement for empowerment, peace, civil rights, gender equality, and economic and social justice. In 2000, President Bill Clinton awarded Reverend Jesse Jackson the Presidential Medal of Freedom. To sit down with him today, to hear his wisdom about the lessons learned for our community, about how to build coalitions together, about the do's and the don'ts that no one else can share us, please welcome, he's going to sit with him, an incredible journalist, but also community, Bret Stephens, who has chaired 2 Pulitzer juries and won the 2013 Pulitzer Prize for the commentary. This is Bret Stephens, a Hispanic star. Let's give it to Bret Stephens, please. And everybody, please give your recognition for Reverend Jesse Jackson to have traveled from Chicago just to share this panel with us this morning. Give it to Jesse Jackson, please.
On. There we go.
Good morning, I'm nervous.
Buenos días, es un placer estar con ustedes y es un gran honor estar con Reverend Jesse Jackson. It's an honor to be with you here this morning. I think we all feel that way, Reverend. Reverend, I want to begin by asking you, I think what must be on the minds of so many people here. As a civil rights leader, you have always been a bridge builder. And you've been a bridge builder when that strategy wasn't necessarily the one that everyone agreed with, the one that wasn't necessarily the obvious one to take. So I'd like you to offer some remarks, because I think here we're also interested in bridge building within the Hispanic community, but also beyond the Hispanic community. What are the lessons that you have learned over the years about how you do it, and maybe also what you should avoid?
Good morning. Good morning. I want to introduce my son, Jonathan, a national spokesman for the Rainbow Push Coalition. I have not always been a bridge builder. I learned to be a bridge builder. We learn to survive apart. I'm Puerto Rican, I'm Ecuadorian. We must learn to live together. We learn to survive apart. But as I said in a speech, it's like my grandmother making a quilt. We couldn't afford to buy one uncut piece of cloth, or a blanket. She would take old pieces of cloth, rayon, silk, cotton, spread them on the bed. Apart they were rags, beautiful colors. She connected them, they became a quilt, a thing of beauty and art. When we are apart, we may survive, we cannot prosper. 100 largest cities are majority black and brown. Repeat, say, we are. Repeat, we are. Each other's future. We need each other. I'm here today because Claudia invited me here. Our first chairman of the Rainbow was Mario Blato. We meant to build a coalition. We relate in Chicago because of Juan Andrade. We meant to build a coalition. I didn't happen to come by. I was invited here. Somebody thinks that black-brown is necessary. Say, we are necessary. Need is the basis of organization. Need, basis of organization. Service is power. Self-interest, the sustaining force. In other words, the 100 largest cities, the majority black and brown. When Tom Bradley ran for mayor of L.A., East L.A., didn't get the Latino vote, and you already got it, he lost. Blacks and browns coalesced with Maxine in that generation. He won 4 times in a row. When Mel Wilson Webb ran for mayor in Denver, and the minority black community, he coalesced with Latinos, him and Pena. Black and browns have been winning ever since. In Chicago, Harold, 75% black community, 50+1 Latino community. He won. He's now a hero. So whenever we choose to coalesce, we build. Blacks must learn to speak Spanish. Latinos must learn to speak English. We must learn to speak to each other. We're separated not just by race, but by language. And what made Dr. King different, in a sense, was when he killed in 60, his last movement was the Poor People's Campaign. Blacks from the Deep South, Latinos from Texas, L.A., and the farm fields, King and Chavez. We met to build a campaign, a coalition. This matter later became our first chairman. I remember we did a joint negotiation with 7-Up Corporation, 7-Up dealerships. We got some black and brown franchises and jobs together. We first went to Silicon Valley. A few years they had 300+ board members, 36 white women, 3 blacks and 1 Latino. They didn't sponsor us into change. We bought stocks in corporations. Shareholders meeting said the HP, we represent, we represent 100 largest markets, black, brown. We represent market, capital, economics, and security. We represent growth. To not include us is like a one-eyed quarterback. You can't see the field. So we represent heaven. We represent market, money, talent, leadership, and growth. Sometimes white people can't see us. They don't take us into account. So let's assert ourselves. We'll not be taken into account. We're hired not because we're responsible. We're hired because we're necessary. So we're hired because we have power. We represent money, market, talent, location, and growth. Market, money, talent, location, and growth. We're stronger together.
Let me ask you about that, Reverend. One of your missions has been changing perception, and that's what you're talking about now. So what are the strategies by which you do that?
We do not have an ability problem. We have an opportunity problem. Nothing is wrong with us. Be proud, but don't have race pride. Pride can become arrogance, and you look down on someone. Say we're proud, but not pride. Pride leads to arrogance. Arrogance precedes the fall. We're proud, but not pride. We're proud because we matter. And what I'm trying to say simply is this. There's no gadget in Silicon Valley we cannot work. A bank we cannot lead in New York, as the case may be. We have the stuff. If you have a size 10 foot and a size 8 shoe, nothing is wrong with your foot. Something's wrong with the shoe. Don't cut your foot off to adjust to the shoe. If you have a size 10 foot, size 8 shoe, nothing's wrong with your foot. Something's wrong. Don't cut your foot off. I'm saying this so that here we are with more market, talent, location than we have room for us. When we cut the shoe off or cut it into sandals, we can grow. We will not. Many wives don't look at us because we don't matter to them. When they meet, we don't occur to them. And so unless we assert ourselves, we will not be on the table. And Turkey should not organize Thanksgiving dinners. Turkeys should not organize Thanksgiving dinners.
One of the things that you have talked about, Reverend, are the 4 stages of the African American story, beginning with the end of slavery, the end of Jim Crow, the still in process acquisition of voting rights, and finally economic empowerment and access, as you've put it, to deal making. So how do we complete those, especially that last revolution?
Well, know what stage we're in. For us, for 1619 to 1865, we were in slavery. Nothing mattered but abolition. But we were unprotected by slavery. We were locked out by race and by culture. Next stage 2 was the end Jim Crow. Jim Crow was more violent to us than slavery because in slavery, we were seen as assets. Right, but we became threats. Therefore, 7,000 blacks and Latinos were lynched. Unprotected by federal law, unprotected by state law. We were lynched. We didn't have the right to vote. We were lynched. Extrajudicial lynching took place on blacks and Hispanics. You can get documentation. We were lynched. Many of us were driven to the cities as refugees, driven by terror. It's not enough that San Francisco, Latino, and Los Angeles, and all that, and blacks. But unless we have the power, we cannot protect our interests. They were free, but not equal. Free, but not equal. It's not enough to be free, you have to be equal. Now, John Jonathan talked a bit about the 14th Amendment. What makes Elizabeth Warren's campaign important to us as a philosophy, she focused on protection. Our vote is important if it's protected. If we can't count, if our vote doesn't count, it's not protected. If it's gerrymandered, it's not protected. If it's at large, it's not protected. If it's not in court, our vote must occur, must be accounted, must be coalesced, must be applied to our interests. So my point is simply this, that in voting, our vote often is not protected. We had big lawsuits in Texas last time around, right? They carved out 4 congressional districts. Things true in Louisiana, right? Texas and Colorado and Chicago. So together, we must fight to protect the vote. Think about it, America may be a majority minority in 2050. That's not true, friends. We're already a majority minority. In 1965, blacks could not vote since 1865. 18-year-olds could not vote or serve in Vietnam. White women couldn't serve on juries in the South. 18-year-olds couldn't vote. You couldn't vote on college campuses. See, as of August 6, 1965, a new majority emerged. It's important to say a new majority emerged. You combine blacks, 18-year-olds, white women, Latinos in campuses. That's a new majority, based upon the idea, not just based upon race, or based upon language. So when it comes together, we become president in 2008. We become congressmen, senators. So we become congressmen, senators, and presidents. When we vote, our shared interests. The first thing we all need is to protect the right to vote. Everything else flows from that. So everything flows. Everything flows. Protect the right to vote. In other words, you can only go to jury if you're a registered voter. Some people came to Chicago some years ago from Britain. Some jurists from Britain, and they went to the jail system, traffic court, Cook County jail. They said, "Where's the jail for the whites? Where are the black and Latinos there?" Now, what we're trying to do now, we're trying to register blacks and Latinos in the jails. They have the right to vote. They've not been sentenced. Some black Latinos have been in jail in Chicago 7 years waiting for trial. 9,000 in Chicago alone. We're going to begin to get precincts in the jail and get computers. They can use some of that time. They use some of the time where they're watching television, learning how the apps, codes, and programming. We must assert that the blacks and browns in jail, talk to them, say blacks and browns in jail must learn to compute. They must learn to vote. Well, I took my birthday last October. I went to jail, and black and Latinos, about 50 of them in the room. And they said, "Rem, what's the voting?" I said, you can vote on the judge. They said, "What?" You can vote for the precinct. You can vote for the captain. You can vote for the... They didn't realize they had power. I said, blacks and browns in jail can vote for the judge, state's attorney general. All of a sudden, they have a reason to vote. They want to vote on judges, right? Talk to me, somebody. Say blacks and browns in jail. When I went to jail in 1983 with Harold Washington. Harold had been to jail for some charge he didn't pay taxes or something like that. We took him to jail. We go every Christmas Day. They laughed. Harold been to jail. A guy named Spencer Leaks was the chair of the Cook County jail. We registered every inmate in jail, about 12,000. They voted for Harold. He won by the margin of those in jail. So every vote counts. In the South, especially, the Voting Rights Act been undercut by the Shelby decision. Our vote, 2013, our vote is undercut. We vote, we lose. I don't think I'm getting you. We won the seat in Virginia in 17. About 200,000, we lost by flip of a coin, gerrymandering. In 2018, we won by 9 million votes and lost the Senate. So voting must occur and must count. And voting must avoid the impediments of gerrymandering and lack of coalition. There's no city, blacks and Hispanics cannot win together.
Reverend. I want to ask you to talk in a more personal way to some of the people in this audience. I see people of all ages. When you're thinking about yourself as a young man, as an activist in your late 20s, what is the advice that you give to activists in their late 20s or maybe 30 years old? And what's the advice you would give to those here in this room who are a little older, in their late 40s or early 50s? What's the advice you wish you had given yourself?
I can't remember that far back. Informative gives learn to learn. So in my formative years, I must learn to learn. Therefore, the first stage really is education, because in principle, we won the principle to end race discrimination. We lost the Latino seat, the Rodriguez case. They chose the black case with racial equality. They missed the Latino case, which dealt with resource inequality. See, it's not enough to be free and unequal. The gap today is not just a race gap, resource gap. So that if you live in Pilsen, Chicago, and live on the west side, Ghetto and Barrio, and versus Neuqua Valley, the suburbs, one school has a computer behind every desk, 11 swimming pools, teach 4 or 5 languages. Schools are so modern until they come there in the summertime to take courses for Notre Dame. As a matter of fact, those schools are really advanced college schools. Our children go to the same schools, our children take the same exams without the same information. So when it comes to boxing and running track, we can make it. Why are we so good at boxing and basketball and football? So whenever the playing field is even. Rules, public, goals, clear, referees fair, scores transparent. We can make it. One more time. Whenever the playing field is even. Rules, public, goals, clear, referees fair, scores transparent. We can make it. In other words, if on the football field, if you had to run 12 yards the first down because you're Latino, and 8 because you're black, because you can inherit some yards, we can do it. So whenever inheritance trumps effort, we cannot win. Effort and excellence means a lot. Effort and excellence means a lot. Inheritance and access means more. You ever got that?
So I promised Claudia that I would give some time to the audience to ask questions of the Reverend. So all I'm going to do is ask you to raise your hands, maybe tell us who you are, and ask a question that ends with a question mark.
Reverend Jesse Jackson, it's an honor to see you here. I'm originally from Chicago, right here. I'm Helen Cavazos, and I live in Houston now. I'm honored to have you here and to hear your words of wisdom. You've been an inspiration to all of us. We have walked behind your coattails, the Browns have, and we thank you for what you've done. My question is this. So the future is now. So the Latinos are the largest population in the country, 16% the minority population, and I don't like the word minority, but we're the new majority, thank you. But what advice do you give to us for the future of this country if we are the majority and we are the force? Thank you.
By yourself, you are a minority. In coalition, we are the majority. We have the power in coalition to change our situation. But we must make shared demands. We must go to Silicon Valley not looking for a donation. We must go to Silicon Valley not looking for a donation, but looking for our share. So Silicon Valley must give us our share. Now, donation is not the share. Board positions, C-suites, contracts, procurement, our demands must be adult demands. The generous donation is not a demand. That's buying time for demand.
I see at least 3 questions, so I'm going to just move from left to right. Right there.
morning. Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Thank you, Reverend Jackson. Thank you, Mr. Steven, for this opportunity. And I have a question. My name is Yvonne Hanks, and I used to be the former commissioner 2010 to 2014 of the City of Albany, New York, for the Division of Human Rights. And one of the biggest challenges that I had, even before I was a commissioner, as a community advocate for the Hispanic community, and then working for the government, that one of the challenges that we had in trying to get, not so much getting to people to register to vote, is to get people to get civically engaged after the vote. For example, we don't really train or teach our people to govern our representative. We are the people, for the people, by the people. So after we give the elected representative their vote, we sort of leave them aside, meaning we don't encourage civic participation, meaning supervise your elected officials, check the public records. So how can we do more than education to get people to get out there and do the job as we the people, for the people, by the people, to govern our elected officials, to make sure that they're making the right decision for us as a community of interest? How can we train, create the activities for outreach so we can encourage people to learn to supervise their elected official? It goes beyond the vote.
Okay.
The oppressor will not give us power. He'll give us a job.
Yes.
I went to high school in Chicago, Curie. 750 seniors, 90% Latino, and they weren't teaching DACA. All 18-year-olds, 18 eligible registered vote right now. And the president didn't have time for the DACA students to register and vote. So no one will give us power. So the responsibility to educate our people beyond the voting is ours, solely ours. No one else has any interest in registering you to vote. And teach you its power but you. You all read the point?
You, sir, in the blue. El botón bajo del micrófono. Ahí está.
My name is Frank Garcia. I am the national chair of the National Association of Latino State Chambers. I've been to your events here in New York. Jesse, thank you for your leadership when it comes to supply diversity. My question, as someone who used to be the head of the New York State Chamber and sued Bloomberg when he gave 1% for Hispanics and African Americans when it came to contracts, now he wants to be our president. And we won that. Now we got 30% for Hispanic and African American businesses. The question I have, I've always learned for you to fight for Hispanics and for African Americans when it comes to supply diversity. The problem with us, we don't like to grade corporations. You've been the greatest person when it comes to grading the corporations. How can we learn from you to make sure that these corporations that we buy from give us the piece of the pie when it comes to supply diversity? They're not doing that. And we need your help on that.
Well, we must learn from each other. I wish there were a group of blacks like comparable to you in the meeting. We can learn from this session. We need a black summit meeting like this, and then a black summit combined meeting. Black leaders just like this. And then joint negotiations. No bank can tell us no. No TV station can tell us no. No investment firm can tell us no. No pension fund can tell us no. I want John to say something about the 14th Amendment. That's what we are, the 14th Amendment.
Hello, Jonathan Jackson, National Spokesperson for the Rainbow Push Coalition. This is the 400th year of Africans in the America from 1619 to 2019. And to put it in perspective, from 1619 to 1865, 246 years, the African Americans were denied under U.S. law access to education, names, resources, made into chattel slavery. I say that in that no one has monopoly on pain in history. There's just a particular irony with the African Americans in the greatest, freest country on earth. The 14th Amendment comes out of 1865, what were called the slave amendments. After the freedom is passed, the 13th Amendment abolishes slavery, but there's a colon, unless duly convicted, which means you are the property of the state. You go back into slave. This created this modern day slave industrial, if you will, prison industrial society. How does this tie in coming up to 2019 when my father sent me down to El Paso to the border? It became clear to me, sitting out there in the 100-degree weather and seeing the children in cages and so forth, why there's a right-wing backlash that's going on. It's all about the 15th Amendment. The 13th Amendment abolishes slavery. The 14th Amendment fights for equal protection under the law in the United States. And the 15th Amendment is your right to vote. What is happening now? There's an attack on the 15th Amendment, your right to vote. Mrs. Clinton won the general election by 3 million votes, but lost the presidency by 77,000 votes. In Wisconsin, Michigan, and in Pennsylvania. She won by 3 million votes and lost by 77,000 votes. You figure that one out. But the 15th Amendment, denying people your access to right to vote. The 14th Amendment, the protection. The 13th is slavery. What I saw in El Paso on all these issues with the border is invalidating people's right to vote. This is why this is a core tenet that this administration, and I'm not talking about an individual, it's an ideology of making people lose citizenship, denying their humanity. It goes together. And after you don't have the right to vote, you don't have equal protection because you cannot be on juries, you're back into slavery. So when my father says we have to fight together, that's at the heart of it. And the right-wing Christian, which we call the wrong Christians because they're not right, it's an ideology of race supremacy, and the real thing they care about, and my father keeps emphasizing the right to vote, is they will let this person be a buffoon in office so long as he stacks the Supreme Court, stacks the federal judiciary, and keeps a level of race supremacy in this country. So 14th Amendment is a key term for us 400 years later for Africans in the America. There are many great laws on the book, but now we're suffering from lack of compliance. After the 2008 financial meltdown, the laws were already on the books for Hispanics, for African Americans to get contracts. The laws were not enforced.
There's also there are more Africans south of Texas than north of Texas. African Mexicans, African Ecuadorians. There are more Africans. There are more Africans south of the border than north. So that we can document the days Africans got freed in those countries. So blacks and Latinos are blood brothers and sisters.
Our blood brothers and sisters. Reverend, we have time for one more question. There's a lady in the back who's been very patient.
Hear me? All right, perfect. So on that note, as a proud Afro-Colombian, so black and brown, I wanted to ask you, Reverend, I'm very excited because I saw you actually 10 years ago at USHLI and very excited to see you again here. So I've worked in Silicon Valley, and now I'm my own entrepreneur, so I created my own business. And as I advance in financial wealth, I want to see how we can equip new leaders that have financial ability to create generational wealth for the generations to come, because that is what's stopping us from being powerful.
Say it again. I don't understand.
It's how to create generational wealth.
Wealth is in collective integrity, not just money. We should have a meeting like this in El Paso. In El Paso, not in New York. If you can stand by and watch Latino babies die in cages and you worry about getting a job in New York, you missed the point. I said, Latino babies are dying in cages. There's too much silence among the Latino community. Oh, he sells some contracts to build a wall. Latinos line up to build a wall. That would be like blacks line up to build slave ships. Say blacks should not build slave ships. Latinos should not build a wall. If so, protest. That's what I mean by collective pride. Because if it's simply, I'm individual proud, I'm up in the mobile, I have an education, I'm going up, 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 up. Suppose you rise to the top and your people are dying on the border. So Jesus was born in a manger, under a death warrant, poor, escaped Egypt as an immigrant and as a refugee, and lived till he was 12. And the point is, that's our story. That's not a hero story. That's how the birth of Jesus in the manger, the birth of Jesus in the manger, poor, under death warrant, escaping Egypt as an immigrant, as a refugee, is our story. We can't give that to Santa Claus. That's our story. I look forward to us having the next meeting with Hispanics and African Americans in El Paso. Let the whole world see us fighting for dignity. If you get dignity, you'll get wealth. So if I get dignity, I'll get wealth. If I get wealth without dignity, it's a house built on sand. If I get dignity, I'll get wealth. But if I don't have an insult level, I never have dignity. With dignity comes wealth. With wealth, without dignity, it's a house on sand. I ain't supposed to work together. I'm happy today. I'm no longer there. I want to talk some now. I'm no longer nervous.
We got time for one quick question.
And this is Dr. Betty Uribe. Thank you so much for being here. Yesterday, Richard Edelman talked about some facts about the Latino community versus the African American community. The African American community, like the Latino community, has gone through a lot, and yet the how we feel about ourselves as a community is much lower for the Latinos than it is for the African Americans. In this room, we have a lot of people, and people that are watching are a lot of people that have access, that have a lot of power, and in this room as well. What can you tell us about the African American community that we can learn and take back to our organizations, to our people, the people that are influencers, that we can actually do to really help our community feel the way that the African American community feels today?
Our future is in here. That's one reason. People don't care that you know they know that. So people do not know.
People don't care what you know until they know how much you care.
They must know that we care. The point is that in the ex-slave states, blacks we're enslaved longer than we've been free. We're just coming together, coming awake. We're about to take Georgia, Montgomery, Alabama, Talladega. Say blacks in the ex-slave states. Say blacks, Latinos, the ex-slave states. We together can turn the red states blue. See, if just black, white in the South, blacks can never become. See, blacks, Latinos in the South, you bring unions to the South, education, collective bargaining. When my mother was dying in the hospital in Greenville, South Carolina, why didn't she say, Reverend Jackson, said my husband up there, he's dying, and they're about to put him out the hospital, and my son has a broken leg or something. Will you pray? I said, I'll pray for him. She said, I said, I'll go and pray. She said, no, don't go up, just pray for him down here. She said, Reverend, to be honest, I really want I don't want Obamacare. She didn't want Obamacare. She wanted the egg. She wanted an omelet without the egg. She didn't know. She had been taught that Obamacare was a problem. South Carolina, 750,000 people eligible for Medicaid. The new majority in South Carolina is black, brown, and needy whites. The former mayor, Nikki Haley, she was born in Bamberg, South Carolina. Hospital she was born in is closed down. If you get Medicaid in South Carolina, if we beat Graham with black running for Senate, we'll have Medicaid 10 billion and 61,000 jobs. Say in the South, don't just count. Say in the South, don't just count Latino votes. Count black, brown votes. Our future is in coalition. Our future is with each other. Our future with each other. Adios, mañana.
Give it up for the Reverend.
I want all of us to show Reverend Jesse Jackson that we are ready to be united. So I want all of us to actually tell you we are ready to be united, and we want actually, look, we have this FOMO and this little jealousy about, like how you manage to unify the community, how you actually put a strategy together and said, we, for the African American community, we're going to have, and I repeat the 4 things, access to capital, access to industry, access to tech, and access to deal flow. And then you actually, from there, build a strategy and said, and now we're going to build the tactics on the action plan, and we're going to go for the jobs of human resources and the jobs for procurement, and we're going to be on the heads of the foundations. And everyone is going to try to get those jobs because those are the jobs that give money. We are ready here, yes or no? Yes or no? So how do we do it?
Claudia, I recommend that we get a steering committee from this group and a comparable black group. We should meet early in January because the election is in March, right? So this year...
November.
No, I mean the election's in when? First election. What's his first primary?
Primary.
We should meet someplace in January because we're in the South.
In El Paso?
Could be El Paso. The point is, say, the ex-slave states where blacks pick cotton and Latinos pick fruit, we both were picking and getting picked on. When Dr. King had the last staff meeting in Atlanta, I let you go. We had some Latinos that we met, Parker Gonzalez and some of Chavez group in the Southwest, blacks from South Carolina, Mississippi. We'd never met each other before. We began to recalculate our relationships. Blacks and Latinos in the South, unions can come south with us together. Collective bargain, higher wages, access to capital. See, when we grow together, we have the numbers now. We have the ability now. We have the need now. Let's organize this January with this league. We will determine the next president. Now.
No. Don't go. One more. Jeff, one more. We launched a campaign yesterday. We launched a framework, a platform that you have there. We call it the Hispanic Star. And I think that that's pretty much a platform that could allow all of us to shine, because that's who we are. Hispanic Stars ready to shine. And I wanted you to, you have the symbol there just with you. And I wanted to give us actually, it's not your la bendición, but I wanted you to give us the, 3 pieces of advice that you think we can all collectively, this is our campaign, this is no one campaign, this is our symbol just to signify and to showcase the Hispanic contributions.
When Frederick Douglass built the first black newspaper, it's called the North Star. See, when we overcome separation and learn to live together and not die apart, look up for the star, So I will cast out darkness. We the people can make it.
Amen.
Nothing is wrong. Say nothing
Nothing
is wrong with us.
is wrong with us.
Something is wrong with the system. When we change our minds, we change
We change
the system.
system.
If we have the faith, God has the power. Say, I am. Loud, I am. Somebody.
Somebody.
I am.
I am.
Somebody.
Somebody.
I am. Somebody. Respect me. Protect me.
Take me.
Never neglect me. I am.
I am.
Somebody. My mind is a pearl. I can learn anything in the world if my mind can conceive it and my heart can believe it. I know I can achieve it. I am God's child. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Hispanics rising.
Rising.
Higher.
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 Yeah! Okay. Reverend, please join us back.